How does a life built on precision, on the quiet order of books, culminate in such a desperate, chaotic final act? This wasn't merely a lie. This was the complete demolition of everything Arthur Maxwell had ever known, and the price, he knew, would be paid in blood. Tucked within the gentle hills of western Massachusetts, the town of Willow Creek moved at its own measured pace. And at its heart stood Arthur Maxwell, the quietly revered head librarian. For over 5 decades, his life had been a dedication to the town's collective memory, his days spent meticulously organizing shelves and guiding eager minds through forgotten histories. Arthur, or Art, as he was affectionately known, commanded respect without demanding it, his presence a comforting constant in Willow Creek's evolving narrative. By his side for just as long was Eleanor Maxwell, whose gracious demeanor and tireless local charity work made their perfectly manicured home a beacon of community spirit. Together they were the town's quiet royalty, a couple whose lives were woven into the very fabric of Willow Creek. Their 4 grown children completed this seemingly perfect portrait. Marcus, the eldest, followed his father's passion, a history teacher at the local high school, dependable and earnest. Sophia, with her sharp wit, ran a successful small business downtown, serving as the family's social center. Daniel, the free-spirited artist, brought levity and a splash of color to their more reserved gatherings. And Chloe, the youngest, a budding journalist, currently carrying her first child, was seen as their innocent future, a new chapter in the Maxwell legacy. On the surface, they were a picture of unity, a testament to enduring tradition. But in Willow Creek, everyone knew the Maxwells. No one, however, knew the truth that lay hidden beneath 5 decades of quiet smiles. The scent of aged paper and lemon polish usually filled Arthur's elegant study, but tonight, on his 80th birthday, it was rich with the aroma of Eleanor's spiced apple cake and the warm murmur of family. Books lined every wall, silent witnesses to decades of a life precisely lived. Chloe, his youngest, beaming, stepped forward. "Daddy, I thought it would be fun," she said, her voice bright with enthusiasm, extending a small, unassuming box, an ancestry DNA kit, a thoughtful curiosity meant to explore their deep roots. Arthur offered a gentle chuckle, accepting the gift with the quiet amusement of a man who believed his lineage was as clear as the Dewey Decimal System. Later, in the quiet of his study, Arthur methodically swabbed his cheek, a simple motion, almost mundane. He sealed the sample, then walked to the old brass mailbox on Main Street. The rain had softened to a mist as he dropped the package inside, the clink of faint echo in the dusk. An innocent curiosity, a simple gesture. But this small, unassuming package held the power to shatter a universe Arthur Maxwell had spent 80 years meticulously constructing. Weeks dissolved into Willow Creek's predictable routine. Arthur's days continued to unfold with meticulous precision at the library, and evenings were spent in quiet companionship with Eleanor. The DNA test, a mere birthday novelty, faded from memory. Then, an envelope arrived. Not the familiar, comforting script of a handwritten letter, but a stark, impersonal digital print. Its cold, sleek surface felt out of place amongst the Maxwells' antique-filled home. Arthur, ever the man of order, opened it with calm expectation. His scholarly calm fractured. The medical terms, initially a puzzle, suddenly resolved into stark, undeniable pronouncements. His gaze fixed on a single line, then another, then 4 more. Beneath his own name, listed under immediate family matches, were the names of Marcus, Sophia, Daniel, and Chloe. Each name was followed by a chilling, absolute declaration: 0% genetic relationship. Arthur's study, usually his sanctuary of measured knowledge, spun into a vortex of disbelief. Nausea tightened his gut. The floor beneath him seemed to vanish, pulling him into a void where half a century of cherished memories now screamed a silent lie. For hours, the revered Arthur Maxwell sat amidst the silence of his study. The sterile report spread before him like an accusation. His 4 children, not his. Every cherished memory, every proud moment, Every single truth he held dear had become a meticulously constructed lie, and he needed answers from the only person who could possibly hold them. Eleanor returned home, humming softly from her garden club meeting. The scent of fresh-cut roses clung to her. She stepped into the quiet study, her cheerful demeanor a stark contrast to the rigid silence radiating from Arthur, who sat hunched over his desk, the damning paper before him. "Eleanor, sit down." Her brow furrowed. Eleanor slowly sank into the armchair opposite him. Arthur didn't look up. He simply pushed the report across the polished wood. Her eyes scanned the page, confusion giving way to a frantic shake of her head. Voice rising, desperate. "Arthur, this is nonsense. Those tests are always wrong. I've heard about these things. It's a mistake." Slamming his hand on the antique desk, the sound echoing. "A mistake? That paper says I'm not their father, Eleanor, not one of them. Don't you dare lie to me again. I need the truth." Defiant, voice cracking. "Truth? You want the truth, Arthur? Fine. You were always in your dusty archives, lost in your books. Do you know what it's like to be alone, to raise children by yourself? A woman has needs, Arthur." Eleanor stormed out, the front door slamming like a gavel. Arthur was left amidst the shattered pieces of his marriage, not just betrayed by infidelity, but by a chilling rationalization. But the echoes of her words lingered, painting a far darker, more personal picture of the half-century lie. Days bled into a desolate quiet. Eleanor's absence hung in the air, a physical weight. Consumed by the lie, Arthur knew he couldn't bear it alone. He needed to confront his eldest, Marcus, the history teacher, the rational mind, the son he considered his steadfast support. He called, offering the pretense of needing help reorganizing the old family library, a poignant symbol of their shared intellectual heritage. Marcus arrived, precisely on time, his familiar earnestness a stark contrast to the tense quiet that now filled the Maxwell home. He stepped into the study, the scent of old paper and fresh betrayal thick in the air. Arthur's hand, usually so steady, trembled as he placed the damning report on the worn mahogany desk. Arthur, voice tight with suppressed emotion, "Read it, Marcus." Marcus's gaze moved from his father's strained face to the document. Confusion shifted to a dawning horror, then to outright desperate denial. Voice rising, a desperate plea. "This doesn't make sense, Dad. Of course you're my father. You raised me. This is a mistake." Arthur watched his son, the echo of Eleanor's denial ringing in his ears. Marcus's inability to accept the cold, scientific fact over a lifetime of belief was a second profound rejection. Arthur's pain deepened, isolating him further with the unbearable reality. He was alone with this truth, and his quiet fury began to solidify. Marcus stormed out, the creak of the old screen door echoing Arthur's growing isolation. As the silence settled back into the room, Arthur knew one thing. This unbearable truth would not stay buried. And for a mind accustomed to order, the chaos within was becoming impossible to contain. Days later, a tense family meeting was called. Sophia, Daniel, and Chloe arrived, their faces etched with a shared apprehension, exchanging worried glances. Eleanor was present, rigid and silent on the antique settee, a statue of quiet defiance. Arthur stood before them, his posture stiff, but his voice, though trembling, was firm. He held the report, a thin shield against their confusion. Slowly, deliberately, he revealed the devastating contents to all three. The reactions were immediate, raw, and shattering. Sophia's shock gave way to tears and a shout of pure anger. Sophia, voice breaking, "How could you do this to us, Mother?" Daniel, pale, recoiled into quiet withdrawal. Daniel, whispering, "This is madness." Chloe, clutching her pregnant belly, whispered a fearful question. Chloe, voice small, "Daddy, why are you saying this?" Faced with her children's devastation, Eleanor exploded. She launched into a desperate defense, then, with a bitter admission, she named the first betrayer, Richard "Rick" Sterling. A longtime family friend, a pillar of the Willow Creek Historical Society, a man Arthur had shared countless intellectual debates and dinners with. Eleanor admitted she wasn't sure about the others. The room erupted. Shouts, sobs, and accusations mingled, a brutal disintegration of their family identity. Years of shared history crumbled into dust. Eleanor stormed out again, leaving the children shattered and Arthur utterly broken, the name of Richard Sterling echoing in his mind. The sacred trust, meticulously built over 5 decades, lay in ruins. But for Arthur, a chilling question began to emerge. If Rick, then who else? And how deep did the betrayal truly run? The quiet, methodical mind of Arthur Maxwell, once dedicated to the precision of knowledge, now turned inward, consumed by the crushing lie. His search for truth intensified, but it was now tainted by a growing fixation. He spent hours in his study, poring over old town records, dusty photo albums, forgotten correspondence, any shred of information that might reveal the depth of Eleanor's deceit. Each forgotten detail, each casual mention of a name, became a piece of a puzzle he was determined to complete. Subtle shifts began to appear in Arthur. His once composed demeanor gave way to a distant gaze, moments of whispered conversation with an unseen presence. He neglected his duties at the library, the shelves remaining disheveled, a stark contrast to his former meticulous care. The townspeople of Willow Creek, noticing his withdrawn nature, exchanged uneasy glances. Arthur Maxwell, their steadfast librarian, was changing. His focus narrowed on Richard Sterling. The betrayal from Rick was a particularly bitter pill, not merely infidelity, but a violation of shared intellectual space, of a friendship built on mutual respect for history and books. This amplified the sense of profound damage. Richard was more than a rival. He was a desecration of Arthur's world. Then an invitation arrived. Eleanor, still clinging to a desperate hope for peace, suggested a dinner at Richard Sterling's home, a misguided attempt to heal the divide. But for Arthur, it was no gesture of reconciliation. It was a predetermined path, a final chapter he intended to write. The stage was set for a reckoning, and Arthur Maxwell, the man of books, would ensure no one would ever forget the unwritten cost of a 50-year lie. The air in Richard Sterling's elegant historic home was thick with an uneasy quiet. The antique furniture gleamed, reflecting the strained greetings and the children's palpable discomfort. Eleanor moved with a forced cheerfulness, a desperate attempt to manufacture normalcy that fooled no one. Arthur sat apart, a silent sentinel, his eyes fixed on Richard. The conversation around him faded into a meaningless hum. In his coat pocket, the familiar solid weight of his antique brass letter opener, a gift from Eleanor years ago, a relic of his intellectual world, now pulsed with a new, deadly purpose. Arthur, voice low, cutting through the strained chatter. Richard, we need to speak outside. The room fell silent. The tension tightened, shifting from polite discomfort to raw public accusation. Richard hesitated, a nervous glance at Eleanor. As if on cue, the first heavy drops of rain began to fall against the window panes, setting a somber, dramatic tone. Richard, voice trembling, forced calm. Arthur, now isn't the time. Let's just... Arthur, stepping closer, his voice a quiet command. Outside. Now. Eleanor's voice cut through the air, sharp with alarm. Eleanor, pleading. Arthur, stop this! You're making a scene! Arthur, turning his head slowly, his eyes cold. We settle this once and for all, Eleanor. Richard, resigned, led the way to the back porch, its shadows deepened by the gathering storm. The air was heavy with the smell of wet earth. Richard, voice a strained whisper. What's this about, Arthur? Arthur, raw, his voice barely a whisper. You think I don't know? What you did to my family? To me? Richard, stumbling back. Arthur, listen. It was a mistake. But Arthur wasn't listening. In one swift, brutal motion, his hand moved. Not to a firearm, but to the heavy brass letter opener. It flashed, then struck. The shocking impact, the sounds of a struggle, the immediate chaos. Richard collapsed, a choked sound leaving him. Eleanor, a horrified scream falling to her knees. "Arthur, no! What have you done?" Arthur turned, his face calm, chillingly expressionless. Arthur, voice flat, devoid of emotion. "You did this, Eleanor! You made me this!" His second, deliberate, fatal strike with the same object. Eleanor's sobs ceased. The horrifying silence descended, broken only by the quiet thud of rain. Arthur Maxwell, the revered Willow Creek librarian, stood over two bodies, the brass letter opener clutched in his hand. The house was silent, but the echoes of a broken life screamed louder than any gunshot. The perfect facade of the Maxwell family and of Willow Creek itself lay shattered beyond repair. In the horrifying silence, Arthur Maxwell moved with a quiet, almost methodical precision. He walked past his frozen children, their faces pale with terror as they witnessed the unfathomable. He stepped out into the pouring rain, the night swallowing him. His drive through the dark, rain-soaked streets was silent. Windshield wipers moved rhythmically, clearing the path, as he headed towards the oldest, most familiar landmark, Marcus's home. Marcus opened the door, his face falling as he took in his father's soaked appearance, the chilling calm in Arthur's eyes. Marcus, voice trembling. "Father, what have you done?" Arthur, voice calm even. "What needed to be done?" The police arrived soon after, flashing lights cutting through the darkness. Arthur stood on the porch, hands raised. The disbelief rippled through the community as Arthur Maxwell, the esteemed librarian, was led away in cuffs. The haunting question remained. Was this truly his sanity breaking, or was there a deeper, darker core to his motive? And what enduring scars would this betrayal leave on the survivors? The trial was swift, almost a formality. Arthur Maxwell, once the pillar of Willow Creek, now a gaunt, expressionless figure, offered no contest. The prosecution painted a stark picture of a mind consumed by rage. But whispers persisted throughout the town. A man pushed too far. A life. For Marcus, Sophia, Daniel, and Chloe, the devastation was absolute. They had lost not only their mother and the man they called father, but the very foundation of their family history. Grief, disbelief, and a profound sense of loss consumed them. The verdict came quickly: life in prison without parole. Arthur received it silently, almost with a strange, quiet relief, as if finally closing a book he could no longer bear to read. Trust. It is a foundation so delicate, built brick by painstaking brick over decades, yet shattered in an instant. The devastating cost of secrets kept hidden for 50 years, a corrosive truth, became evident not just in two lives extinguished, but in the enduring wreckage left for generations. How fragile is the foundation of a family when built on half a century of lies? And what is the true price of betrayal when it shatters not just one existence, but an entire legacy? Arthur Maxwell's story is not merely a chronicle of crime. It is a profound study of a man broken, a man who believed he had given everything, only to discover he possessed nothing at all. If Arthur Maxwell's story gripped you as much as it did us, please like, share, and subscribe. We want to hear from you. Was Arthur Maxwell a man pushed too far, or was there another path? Could anyone truly survive such a betrayal without breaking? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching 24/7 True Crime Chronicles. Stay safe, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next story.